All right, welcome back to a bonus episode of the Blasters and Blades podcast. So, hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies, a place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So, without further ado, let me tell you what we're doing right now. We're getting ready to release some of the archive that we found from when we were the sci-fi shenanigans. We're going to get those up there for the posts that were brought down. We thought you might enjoy them, and so without further ado, let us roll that beautiful. Oh wait, they're going to sue me. Play it.
Hey, all you crazy sci-fi fans. Time for your daily dose of insanity over here at the Sci-Fi Shenanigans podcast with your hosts, J.R. Handley and me, Chris Winder. Just two nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions. A place where the sky's the limit, space is the place, and nerds run the world. Without further ado...
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Sci-Fi Shenanigans podcast. Today, as our special guest, we have another veteran, author Craig Martelle. Woo! Yay! That was the Peanut Gallery. Craig is a retired Marine Corps officer who went to law school after he hung up his uniform. He took that law degree into business consulting and became a business diagnostic specialist and leadership coach. And don't worry, I don't know what that means either, but we'll just keep going. That wasn't exciting enough, so he retired from that and started writing full time, and he's not looked back since, and neither have his readers. He has a number of best-selling novels in categories that matter to him: space opera, military, sci-fi, space marines, colonization, and genetic engineering. As a serial daydreamer, he loves the chance to finally get the stories on paper, virtual and digital paper. He had to specify that because he's smart like that. Craig is also a veteran. You served in Iraq too, right?
I went to Iraq in 93. I went there after the war as part of the stabilization force.
Hey, well, then I'll cut that out of the introduction. I thought you served in the Second Gulf War too.
I in war in Afghanistan, yes. I didn't go to Afghanistan, but I deployed to CENTCOM 5 days after 9/11.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I misunderstand what you said in other interviews, but all right. Other than getting that wrong, did we get anything else wrong?
No. That's okay. That's there were too much war, I guess we should say, that going around the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I kept it simple. I just went to Iraq twice. I didn't want to confuse people with geography.
Yeah.
That's the life of the infantry. We like to keep it simple. But the second part of the interview, dear listener, is we like to tell how we first found the guest. So when I first started writing, I made a point of trying to connect with all the other combat veterans who had switched their rifles for pens, metaphorical pens anyway. Some of us do still enjoy shooting. That was how I first found Craig. Then I saw that he helped run the 20 books, the 50K group where indie authors help each other with the business side of stuff. And we've just sort of stayed in touch since then. He does a lot to give back to the author community. So that is how I found him. What about you, Chris?
Oh, Craig and I met at his friend's house for a birthday party. I'd never met the birthday person before, but the name on the mailbox was Schrodinger. When he knocked on the door, nobody answered. He knocked again, asked if anybody was inside. Someone was, I think, because they said, "I don't know, am I?" And we were pretty sure they were, but it went back and forth so long, we finally gave up, left, and had tacos. And while we were eating tacos and talking about his weird friend, we actually had an argument of whether or not a parsec is a unit of measurement or unit, of distance or time. I said it was time, and I'm pretty sure I won that argument.
I'm not sure how, but anyway.
It's all quantum hand wave. It's good.
All right, silly Marines.
Oh, and don't forget, JR, you were in my the Expanding Universe science fiction anthology.
That is correct. I was going to mention that when we got to the list. He is the first author, by the way, dear listener, when we list out the series and it goes with the Drop organization. And he's the first one whose letters on the drop thing went from A through Z and then A, B, B. Like, it's crazy how many series this man has written.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, better take a deep breath before you read that list.
right. All right.
All right, so the first question, and I have my mouse over the kick button, is a religion question. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Now, this is kind of a setup question because we did write a series called Dark Landing, which was to fill that void for distressed Firefly fans. We call it a space western.
Yes.
And it has that kind of feel. It also has the 8 main characters, which is a significant element of the Star Trek Firefly consortium of writing a space opera, a character-driven science fiction story. So, yes, Star Trek and Firefly.
Okay, so 8's the magic number, huh?
Yes, look at the characters. Look at the main characters and the stories, and then as we did and as Firefly did, some of the stories you'll focus on one character with a couple supporting characters, and other ones it'll be one character with a couple supporting characters, and not always the same main character. And we did this mainly with Dark Landing because we wrote it as a TV serial, even though yes, it's books and we sell it as books. But Star Trek, those are all. You see how you can separate out your filming so you're not burning out your main 3 characters all the time. You have the song, you have like the one or two main, but then the supporting characters fill in a lot of the extra dialogue and screen time. So space opera, there it is, man.
Very scientific. So what do you love about science fiction as a genre?
You can address almost any issue you want and paint it onto a futuristic backdrop, and it's a safe place to talk about, which I'm a child of the 60s. So I watched Star Trek, the original series when they were new. Each week, my brother, he's 8 years older than me, would get the TV, and yes, the big TV with the 13 channels that you had to physically change. And we would watch those new episodes, and I was in awe of the science fiction, the sciencey stuff, laser beams and stuff like that. And later, like watching it right now, you can go back and if you look back what was going on in the 60s and how Gene Roddenberry was able to address those issues, that's what I love about science fiction. I read, my brother being 8 years older and a huge science fiction geek, he had a huge library, so I started reading young because I didn't have any friends who lived close by, so I read a lot. And I read books that were probably well above what I should have at the time, but still, it was there. Growing up with Andre Norton and Heinlein and Asimov and Jules Verne and those guys in the written word. So science fiction was what I grew up with, and it just seems so natural to me.
Wow, nice. So, what's your earliest memory of watching, reading, or playing games in the genre?
That is the 60s, watching the original series, Star Trek.
Okay. What's your favorite Star Trek? Is it the original?
Oh, of course. because it set the standard. The other ones later may have had better CGI, better special effects, different themes that they talked about, but still, the original set that standard for everyone to deviate from, and maybe the acting wasn't as great as it could have been, but it wasn't bad. And I consider the acting in the original Star Trek still phenomenally superior to the acting in Star Wars from the 70s.
Nice. Do you remember the episode of Star Trek where they address racism? And this isn't something that I was even aware of until maybe 10 years ago, and it suddenly hit me. But these two factions were fighting, and all they did was paint their makeup black on one side, white on the other, and then on the other actor it was switched. Do you remember that episode?
Yep.
Yeah, once it hit me, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, forget the title, but that's exactly it. And it was once again painted on the backdrop of the 60s. You look at that and say, but that's ridiculous. They're both black and white. Yes, they are. But that guy, he's black on the left side as opposed to black on the right side, and just and showed it for how ridiculous it is judging somebody by their exterior.
It's so brilliant.
Yeah, there's much more important things we should judge people by the direction you put the toilet paper on.
What car they drive, what cosplay they do. I mean, yeah, there's really more important things to judge.
Do they put pineapple on the sacred pizza? I mean, that's just blasphemous.
I don't want to. I don't want to start a riot on your show. Pineapple on pizza.
So, how did you go from the love of science fiction to writing in it?
As a lifetime reader, I always read, and I can't imagine my military days because I always had a book in my pack or in my sea bag, at least one or two, and it sucked lugging those around. But now with a Kindle, my God, I can't imagine how many books I would have read when I served.
Right.
But so as an avid reader, I've always read. But transitioning to a writer, well, when I'm 52 years old and I'm deployed up in the North Slope, the Arctic Circle, right, in the oil field. And I'm fed up. I'm gone more than 50% of my life. And here I'm 52 years old. I have a law degree, and I have all the money I need. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Why am I doing this? Because I was making great money, and my ego, hey, look at this I'm making a difference. Not that much of a difference in being gone. There's just sometimes you have to say, no, it's not worth being gone. So I retired from that and I came home and I'm like, okay, what do I do? Because I'm a workaholic. I can't just do nothing. So I go out in the yard and I'm like, I'm going to make this yard immaculate. We have a 2-acre yard and I have this huge burn file. So I lit myself on fire. And then I determined that I shouldn't be out there entrusted with any kind of power tools.
Wow.
I came back inside and I had 2nd-degree burns on half of my leg. And I said, I always wanted to write a book. How about if I write a book? That's safe. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to hurt myself. And 61 days later, I had a 100,000 word book.
Wow.
Now that first book, yes, it sucked. The story didn't suck, but there were a lot of times where they're disjointed, where the flow. So I reread it about 20 times, self-editing, and then finally got it to a place where I could publish it. And I ended up selling 50 some copies, of which I think 49 were to my dad. So, yeah, but it got it out there. And so that's where I started because I lit myself on fire. So serendipity, the skin grew back and actually most of the hair too. So it's okay.
So did that moment start with, hey, hold my bear, watch this?
It did not, but thank goodness there was snow on the ground, even though it was so I was able to dive into a snowbank and stop, drop, and roll. I still remember Dick Van Dyke. Yes, and stop, drop, and roll. And because gasoline doesn't, don't ask me why I'm burning a pile with gasoline, but it will keep burning even if you do rub snow on it. So I had to rub snow on my legs to stop the fire, and it wasn't an optimal situation, shall we say. And I thought about it. I'm like, I was close to killing myself today, and so we're not going to do that anymore. So actually, I pay people now because that's a great thing about writing full time. You can achieve a level of success where you can pay people who aren't going to light themselves on fire to do the things that you shouldn't be doing.
Your homeowner's insurance thanks you for that.
I'm sure they do, and I'm glad they don't know about it.
Shh, don't listen. You didn't hear that. All right.
So a lot of authors have one author that they've read before that they try to model themselves after. For instance, mine is R.A. Salvatore because I love his character development, even though he mostly writes fantasy and I write science fiction. I absolutely adore his main characters. Who do you think's been the largest influence on your writing? Maybe someone you want to outdo or someone you want to emulate?
Anne McCaffrey. I like her style. I like her storytelling. I like the way you love her characters. You fall for them and you just want to follow them and you want great things to happen. And so Anne McCaffrey, mainly the Dragon Riders of Pern, as the seminal series that for anyone to emulate, that would be the person.
Wonderful.
I actually have that hardback on my desk, and I've read it so many times it's falling apart. So
then you're a better man for it because of it's just a great story. It's a great read.
It's one of those ones that every time you read it, you realize something you missed the last time. And it's like, aha, it's got those moments. So I do enjoy that. So this is the part of the interview, dear listeners, where we list out what he's written. Craig's written miniseries. Many of these are written in the Kuthurian Gambit universe and include several novels and short stories. Because he's written 10 trillion books, yes, that's a mathematical number we've checked, we'll just list the series names. Many of these books are available as ebooks and audiobooks. So if you're interested in looking closer, Craig's contacts are in the show notes. And I'm sure he has a primer somewhere what order you need to read them in. When you're done, I'm sure he will give you the PhD certificate in Martelle Incorporated. So there's that. But and if you're interested in the Dark Landing stuff he talked about earlier, that series, I listed in his show notes the interview he did on the Hank Gardner podcast specifically about that series, and it's an hour long. It's a good listen. I've enjoyed that as well. So. All right. So starting in no particular order, we have the Judge, Jury, and Executioner series with Michael Anderle, the Dark Landing series with Scott Moon, the Terry Henry Walton Chronicles, a Kuthurian Gambit series with Michael Anderle, a Gateway to the Universe series with Michael Anderle and Justin Sloan, the Bad Company, a Kuthurian Gambit series, End Times Alaska series, the Free Trader series, the Cygnus Space Opera series, the Rick Bannock thrillers, Becoming a Successful Indie Author, a standalone nonfiction story, the Expanding Universe science fiction anthologies. There are 4 of them in total, and I was in the 3rd one. It's still available in paperback if you're so inclined. We've got the Shadow Vanguard, a Tom Dublin series, the Uprise Saga with Amy Dubuff. I think that's how you pronounce her name.
Duboff, yeah.
Metamorphosis Alpha, stories from the world's first science fiction RPG with James M. Ward. People Raged and the Sky Was on Fire, which is a standalone. A Super Dreadnought with Tim Marquitz, which is coming in fall of 2018. Enemy of My Enemy, also with Tim Marquitz, also coming in the summer of 2018. We have The Heart Raged, a standalone, which is also coming soon. Cruise Liner Hades 7, a Lost 77 World's Tale, a standalone novella. Defense of the Deep Space Denali, included in the Expanding Universe Volume 2 and is released as a standalone. We have The Tide, a chapter story with contributions from 21 unique authors, which is also a standalone. The Misadventures of Jacob Wild McKilljoy. Wow, speak much. Michael Scott Earl, which is a standalone, and Wisdom Journey, a standalone. We have Just One More Fight, a standalone, A Language Barrier, a standalone, Lunar Resorts Anthology, Volume 2 with Stephen Lee and James M. Ward, Apocalyptic Space Short Story Collection, and it contains the Free Trader short story with Stephen Lee and James Ward, Earth Prime Anthology, Volume 1 with Stephen Lee and James Ward, and then the Free Trader, Cygnus, and People Raged Craig Martelle Starter Library, which you can get if you're interested for $2.99. Wow. I feel like I just ran a marathon. All right. So with all those amazing books, today we're going to focus on your newest science fiction series, Craig. We'll talk about the Judge, Jury, and Executioner series. So how did you come up with the idea or the premise for these series? Was it psychedelic, snow blindness, extreme cabin fever?
It was a Michael Anderle idea on taking Boston Legal and putting it in space. And I liked it. Being a lawyer, of course, I liked it. How can we write space opera with a lawyer who people like, as opposed to a lawyer who makes money, as all lawyers do, no matter what the situation, the lawyer's going to win.
Yeah.
So it was his idea, and we were looking for a co-writer to write it, and we never did find anybody who was really had the work ethic as we did to get that story down. And as I started writing it, I'm like, I need to write this. I can't have do a co-writer and collaborate on it where the other person does the heavy lifting, because then it really wouldn't take the shape that it did. So You Have Been Judged, which we're calling Boston Legal meets Judge Dredd, came out of the gates last Monday, almost 5 days ago. It's still ranked 700 overall in the score and it's $4.99 is the price. It's killing it, getting a lot of 100,000 page reads a day.
Wow!
So it's came out, got 61 reviews in the first 72 hours. So I was really, really happy with that, because I put in right after the end, I put, hey, if you'd like the series to continue, please leave a review, because it's the only way I know that you like the story. And it has gotten the glowing reviews. People are really, really impressed. I think it's my best book ever in regards to flow, the way the flow works, the way the story develops. And also, it's unlike my Terry Henry Walton Chronicles, which I had a consistent, like a 3 POV interweaving chronology. You Have Been Judged is pretty much a single POV straight flow through from the chronological perspective.
Okay. So the Judge, Jury, and Executioner universe is clearly a series, I know, because you just told us. So where do you see it going? You have one book out. How deep into this series will you go, and what's next for the characters?
The character will get a different view next time, and we're looking at something like a RICO racketeering kind of approach that she'll take on the law, because how do you... Something that people don't understand is, hey, that's you have a monopoly. Well, not all monopolies are bad, but when does a monopoly become illegal? And working those little bits of law into the story, weaving those in, is a challenge, and also it's fun to do, and you can educate people a little bit. Like, what's the term res ipsa loquitur? What is mens rea? What is actus reus? Those Latin terms that you have to learn if you go to law school. So there's my 3 years of law school. I get to use it here and let people know just a little bit at a time. Like 3 or 4 points of law in each book is all, but so people can learn and also read a great story.
I love stories that you can actually learn something from. I once read a story by W.E.B. Griffin where he talks about the pilot of a helicopter actually having to bend the blades. I didn't know that was a thing, where they can actually put a curve into the blades and gain some more lift by curving them, straightening them, and actually flapping the blades like a bird. So I appreciate stories where I can actually learn something new from them. So that's cool.
All right. And the good news, dear listener, is that he's actually not billing you by the hour for those little bits of information. So you lucked out this time. But the next one is not free. So, all right. So looking through the description, and just based on what you just said, the universe really felt like a mashup of Judge Dredd and all of the lawyer TV shows that we love. And you mentioned that was your intention, but how close to the lawyer side do you plan on going? Or is it going to be more of an action story, sort of like Jag was? I don't know if you remember that TV series.
Oh, Jag. Yeah, I remember that. They kind of went off the rails there towards the end. I mean, way, way off the rails. So, it has to have action, because that's our readership that we've developed over the years. I have about 10,000 core readers, and they like a certain amount of action. It's okay to be in the courtroom, but somebody better punch somebody in the face, otherwise I'm gonna lose people. So
I don't know why,
but that's where the Judge Dredd element comes in. So it helps to make the lawyer also the judge, jury, and executioner. She has the mandate to punish the guilty. So that's just simple. And that also feeds a little bit of my space Western desire, because they liken them to the old judges who would travel the Wild West and go from city to city, a town to town, and they'd have the criminals, and they'd hear them for a day, and they'd rule and then move on. So she kind of fills that role within a galactic scale.
For some reason, when you talked about punching someone in the courthouse, I'm picturing that scene. I think it was A Few Good Men. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Restrain the colonel.
Yes. I'll link that in the show notes, and I'll see if I can't find a little YouTube clip. But if you haven't seen that movie, what the heck is wrong with you?
Right. Yeah, you're missing out. You're missing out.
Given that we're about to get where he can get more in depth in this story, we're going to take a little bit early break, and we're going to pause for a word from our sponsor.
Under 30,000 feet of water, the exploration rig Leaguer has discovered an oil field larger than Saudi Arabia. With oil so sweet and pure, nations would go to war for the rights to it. But as the team starts drilling exploration wells in their race to claim the sweet crude, a deep rumbling beneath the ocean floor shakes them to their core. Something has been living in the oil. Paul E. Cooley's The Black is a techno-horror thriller reminiscent of movies such as Leviathan and The Thing, and puts terror right into readers' ears. The Black, a free podcast novel available from shadowpublications.com and iTunes. Ocean exploration will never be the same.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through the commercial. We're back with Craig Martelle, a lawyer turned writer and former Marine. Speaking of lawyers, was it fun getting to use your law degree in such a way, direct way within the universe that you write in? And how close to the law do you intend to stick?
The law is based on English common law here in the U.S. So people say, well, the legislature makes laws. Yes, they do. However, judge-made law is about 90% of the rulings, I believe, because you go to court for a divorce. The judge will make that law. Here's the standard. Here's what you do within a certain framework. So I will stick very, very closely to the law. I'll pick those specific elements. But then, of course, it's going to be a digression when the lawyer is punching people in the face and punishing them in the open. So that might be a little bit of a diversion from reality here. However, on a galactic scale, in a space opera, where we're going to spend time with the characters, that's what we want to do. So you're gonna meet the characters and hopefully grow with them, learn a little bit about the law as she learns as she goes, and understand that some legal systems are different. You travel to the Middle East, legal system is going to be different. And how do you work within that legal system? Like right now, so in the galaxy, you go to a different planet. Well, how is their legal system a little bit different, and how do we work within that? And that's
oh wow,
those points, they won't distract. It'll be the first book, very fast moving, a quick read. I've heard from almost all the people that once they started it, they could not put it down, and that is, let me steal Mark Dawson's phrase, unput-downable. That is the goal of a book, is to have people read it in one sitting, because that means that you've hooked them and you've kept it going, and that's my goal.
So do you plan on stealing, from borrowing, whatever the appropriate case may be, from other legal traditions outside the US, UK base to get a little bit unique flavor when you're doing the law scenes?
I might do a little research and stuff, but there's so much opportunity within the U.S., like RICO, the racketeering and corrupt organizations. How do you work that in such a way that without melting people's brains on, hey, this accountant looked through 12 gigabytes of data. We don't need to do that. Let's watch it real time.
So with an English common law tradition, which is the basis of U.S. law, you said, does that mean you're going to revert to some of that and have them wear like really cool wigs, the barristers?
powdered wigs.
There will be no wigs, but they do change their hair color on occasion, because we had one of the characters had purple hair in the first one, and she changed it to blonde. So
I'm a little bit sad at the lack of powder wigs.
Yeah, that's yeah. But she does wear, the lawyer, that's the magistrate's jacket is a flight jacket, a naval flight jacket, which is what I chose specifically as their trademark piece of gear.
Okay,
cool.
Not quite a powder wig, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
All right. So you've described this series in your Amazon listing as Galactic Empire story interwoven with genetic engineering awesomeness. Well, I added the awesomeness, but so what is it about those two subgenres that appealed to you and motivated you to take this legal story and set it in that setting?
Let's call those tropes, because a Galactic Empire, the important thing with the Galactic Empire is just the scale that you can work in. And genetic engineering is to give the person a foot up. Not a superhero trope, but help them become a little better than they are, especially when it comes to getting hurt, how rapidly they can heal. So that's the genetic engineering part, is nanocytes, just to help them heal, help them be a little bit stronger, than what they appear, because and this is my desire to have the readership always look at somebody as if they are more than they appear, whether it's characters in my book or people they meet in real life. You have to understand that no matter who you meet, they're going to know something that you don't know. So you should always listen more than you speak, and take the people at more than face value, because there's more to them than what you know.
Good advice.
All right. That's kind of deep. No, the silence wasn't because I forgot to unmute it. This time I was actually thinking. I do that sometimes. That's why you smell smoke. Grunts, we don't like to think. But all right. So what role did you mentioned that the basic idea, the starting point was Michael Anderley's, but what role did he have in crafting it as it went forward? Because, he's mentioned before that he has an IT background, not a legal one. So how did you balance that in when you two were writing this Boston Legal meets Judge Dredd?
I wrote the story and I sent passages to him as we went, and he said, "Good, I like it."
Okay, so you wrote the first draft.
Yeah, I wrote the story.
Now, with all these ideas that you have for the universe, would you ever consider working with anyone else besides Michael Anderley, or is this just for you and him? Do you plan on maybe branching off of this story?
No, this one will be. You'll see on the cover. Michael insisted that I put just my name on the cover because of that. The story was mine. So even though he is listed as co-author inside, but he did insist on that. So this story will be me. But you'll see that I've co-written with Scott Moon, with Kevin McLaughlin, with Tim Markwitz, with some other folks. So it's not. As far as co-writing, I am more than willing. K.N. Lee actually and I are co-writing Dragon's Call, an epic fantasy trilogy. Nice. So I have a lot of co-writing projects in the works, and those usually for the other writers, they're going to do the heavy lifting of the majority of the writing, but either I'll outline or add in parts, punch it up as it may be. Which means you add words or add in characters and help the three-dimensionality of the story.
Okay. Well, when I first found your books, it was all your military science fiction stuff. Do you expect this may start involving some more space combat or large-scale fighting?
That's actually, I have a co-written series coming up that I'm working with Jonathan Brazee, United States Marine Corps Colonel, retired. So he and I will write. It'll be an every other chapter project because we're going to do two POVs, 2 points of view, where he will take the officer and the staff point of view, and I will take the enlisted point of view.
Oh.
So we'll have two different views of the battlefield, and this is galactic scale. This is army on army kind of scale stuff. So we have that series coming. We've outlined the first book, and I give civil affairs a great deal of props in that first one because you can't just win the battle. You need to win the hearts and minds of the population. So we're including those, and that'll be a challenge for both of us because that's not how either of us were raised in the Marine Corps of the 70s and 80s.
So when I was in the Army, they were doing that hearts and minds stuff when I was in Iraq for both tours. But I had a very, very wise platoon sergeant who told me once that if you grab them by the balls, the hearts and minds will follow. And that's sort of the infantry motto, unofficially, of course.
Yeah, there's so many wrong ways I can go with that. About touching other people's. Never mind.
Family show. Let's get back
Army
on track.
Stuff. Silly Army.
Yeah, Army. You just can't ever let those guys out of your sight.
All right, Craig. So, have you been approached, or what would you like to see in the future with this particular series, such as role-playing games, movies, video games, anything like that?
Our hope is always to hit the big screen. Dark Landing was written specifically for the small screen, and we have already been approached by a studio. I'm not sure that's going to pan out, but so we're always looking. And we do have our fingers into Hollywood, so nothing is off the table. And the quality combined with the quantity, the volume of material, especially as as the big screen struggles with finding original material that will resonate with an audience, since they're doing so many remakes, and they're not good remakes, for Christ's sake. It's a shame to waste that kind of horsepower and then make bad movies. So we want them look to the indies and look to somebody like Michael Anderle, who has over 200 books published as part of his publishing company. There has to be something there, especially his Bethany Ann character, that would have long legs, be able to resonate across a broad audience, a broad range of audience, and then have more material for follow-on stories. So you don't just get one and done. Like the Harry Potter, here's 7. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I mean 8 movies that killed it. And then you get the theme park and all of that too. How do you get there from here? One step at a time. You have to publish great stories that people get hooked to. And that's with You Have Been Judged. People have already reread it, and that's what touches me the most, is that people are looking for stuff they missed with the first read because they read it so fast because they just wanted to know, and then they go back and read it carefully the second time to see what they missed, and then maybe even read it a third time. Rereading, it's like a hotel's quality control. You don't need to run a survey. All you need to do is, do they come back? Have you stayed here before? If the answer is yes, then your hotel is doing fine.
I know.
Wow, yeah.
Given the popularity of the legal stuff on TV, you've got all the Law and Orders and Boston Legal and JAG and all those, and the popularity of like the I know my mom watches that ID television where like How to Murder Your Husband stuff. So I definitely think there's a market for the viewing. I know if my dad ever goes missing, I'm telling you, I know what happened. But yes, I definitely think there's a market for the legal stuff. I don't think there's ever been, at least on a television screen, the lawyer in space kind of thing. I mean, Judge Dredd, nominally he was the lawyer, but I don't think it was quite as much. I mean, he was more just a superhero than I felt like than a legal story.
And that's a comic, and it's more dystopian than dystopian superhero, as opposed to like law in space to expand. And that's one of the Star Trek episodes where Kirk is accused of killing somebody because of incompetence. That is an episode where you have law in space and how he works that, how he and Spock together come to a resolution and find that, hey, the guy never died, actually. He made it up. So that is a great basis, and it was a popular episode.
That seems to be a common episode to do. Stargate did it where you basically take the crew and they have to stand trial. Partly they do it because they can do the flashbacks and save on recording, but those episodes are always still highly received, even for people that have seen the episodes they're referencing. So I mean, I definitely think there's a market for an interest in that. I think Star Wars didn't really, because it didn't apply, but most of the serialized science fiction shows have at least one of those episodes. It's right up there with Disneyland for the sitcoms. It's just one of those things they always do. So, like always, I've skimmed the reviews to figure out how the readers take your work. As usual, I'll remind you, dear listener, to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Good, bad, or indifferent, they all help the right readers find books. In this one, the 2 negative reviews, because we tend to look at the good and the bad, were so generic that they were basically useless. So we're going to skip on to the good stuff. This book has, as we're recording, 2 2-star reviews and 5 4-star reviews, and then 44 5-star reviews. So, obviously, if you've read it and didn't leave a review, go do that. But all of the positive reviews were surprised by this book. They expected something pure legal thriller. I don't know, Pelican Brief, I guess, would be the example that comes to mind. And they got plenty of that mixed with humor that was tinged with action and adventure. So how do you plan on keeping that vibe going? Because that's a tall bill to follow.
That's you're just going to have to read the next book to find out.
Oh,
good answer.
No spoilers. Curses, I say.
And that's you want to ask how many books I've sold, and I'll tell you, not enough. Read the first one. Read the first one, and the second one. The second one I hope to put up for pre-order within a week or so, for maybe a month down the road. I've already started it. I have to finish Free Trader 9, which will be the last book in the Free Trader series. And then Destroy the Corrupt is Judge, Jury, and Executioner Book 2. So Destroy the Corrupt will be next, and probably up for pre-order for maybe the first week in August, I'm thinking.
That's fast. Now we have our goals, Chris. We want to write that fast.
Yeah. How long? Come on, man. How long does it take to write a book? Come on, man.
Well, that depends.
That's a loaded
All right.
question.
So in that vein, how do you foresee yourself balancing the legal sequences that that we've obviously are popular, and the kinds of things that people expect from the larger Arthurian Gambit universe?
I've written. You Have Been Judged is the 18th and 19th book I've written in the Arthurian Gambit universe. So it's kind of second nature to me. So how it flows and how it fits within the canon is almost natural. I'll just write it. Now, the good thing is I am surrounded by a great team of beta readers, and I will give it to them as it's in progress. And they'll double check to make sure that the canon is correct, and second, that it reads well. And they were really happy with what they saw in the first book. They got the first 30,000 words, and they were quite pleased, because I'm like, hey, I'm not sure this is working. I always hit that point whenever I write a book, and I send it to them, and they read it, and they're like, oh no, here's this, here's a few typos, and here's this, here's a continuity issue. You said he said when it should have been she. Okay, hey, got that, thank you. And I clean that up and move on, and then surprise them with the last half of the book. I'll send it to my editor, and then it'll go back to the beta readers for finalization, clean up with the last typos.
That's a lot of books. How do you keep that universe straight? Is there do you have like a universe Bible that's like, I guess, a book in itself at this point, or do you do it all in your head? Spreadsheet?
I have a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet with a lot in my head. Yeah. And then the beta readers, those guys know the canon. They've read every book in the universe. So
wow, okay. I'm shuddering trying to imagine keeping that all straight in my head.
Right. I've heard it said that authors write books to get the story out of their head, where readers want it in their head. So I guess sometimes we forget stuff that we wrote.
Oh my God, yes. I'm writing Free Trader 9, and they're on the Spaceship Traveler, right? And that book was book 3, and I'm on book 9 now. And book 3 I wrote 2.5 years ago. So I was like, how many people were on this ship originally? 100,000, a million? So I just wrote it that way. I don't know, 100,000 or a million? Because I don't remember what I put. So I made it so the character didn't remember either.
Perfect.
Instead of going back and digging through and saying, can I find it? Nah, waste of time. Just, you don't remember.
Chris has said that's his largest fear, is one day he's going to be big enough, he's invited to speak at a panel, and some super fan's going to ask him a question, and he's not going to remember.
Oh my God, they've done that to me. Hey, on this, in book 3 of this, it's like, oh my God, that was 25 books ago. Oh my God. Yeah, and don't even remember, what was the character's name again? You can't answer like that. It's like, oh man, do you believe it? What do you think it was?
Turn it back on.
I like it.
I answer with a question because I'm like, I don't even remember that.
And that's going to make them think you're even smarter, because it worked for Socrates, right? The Socratic method.
Yeah, that's right. Which, of course, you'll remember, that's a legal method, the Socratic method.
See, I did that on purpose, of course.
That's a law school thing.
Right. That was not an accident, dear listener. But so...
he meant to do that.
Famous last words. So before we transition to the last... third of the interview, where we talk more about the genres writ large, is there anything that we didn't cover about the Judge, Jury, and Executioner series? Anything you want to tell us before we move on?
I think it's my best book. I've written 50 some books, and I think it's my best one in regards to flow and how it is, because, and also I found that it was one of the easiest to write, because everything was in my head, and how it all worked, and the banter between the characters. Writing a single POV and going from there, it was easier for me to keep straight. When we have multiple POVs, the worst I've had was I had 8 different POVs interacting within the same chapter, as 8 different actions were ongoing, and that was the book Blockade, which was very, very well received, but it was a challenge, and it was hard to write because I had yellow stickies everywhere. And this one I I actually didn't have any yellow stickies as I was writing the story because it was more straightforward than that. So I like it from that perspective. It's smooth and it flows. So that's what I liked about that one. But generally, the writing process is you get the words down, you get them out of your head, and get them onto the page because you can't edit a blank page. So once it's there, then you can look at it and see how it works, and then make it work from.
I actually tried that writing 8 POV characters, and it got too much, so I just started killing people so I could simplify it. I'm like, oh, that person dead.
I did that in the next book, and that was the Bad Company series, book 3. I wrote a whole book, and I left off one of the characters, a whole book, and I didn't have this character in there, so I went back and added him into a couple scenes, and then in the next book, I actually killed him off. And the fans flipped out. They're like, "Oh, he was my favorite character." I'm like, "How can he be your favorite character?" Without even mentioning it.
All right.
So, because and for that same reason, it's like I'm losing. I can't keep track of all these characters. So let me start axing a few. Oh my God, yeah, no, don't do that. Don't add in the character if you're not going to write them in perpetuity.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. All right, so Jared's done enough talking. So we ask all our military veterans this question. How do you feel like your time in the Marine Corps has affected the stories that you tell?
The funniest stuff I've ever seen was in the Marine Corps whenever the chips were down, stress was high, whatever you want to say, because the Marines do the funniest stuff. That's I saw a meme on Facebook about it. Showed a picture with the X over it of somebody like peeing up over their head and into the toilet, right? And it's like, don't do this, right? And I'm like, oh, that's a ridiculous thing. And I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, if you posted that in a Marine barracks, people would actually try to do that, peeing in their face and on their head. So which that's the Marine Corps to a T. Here, tell them don't do this because it's really stupid. To oh yeah, really? Watch me, like you said. Hey, hold my beer. Watch me. No, I mean some of the stuff we did in the field was insane.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, we had a vehicle. We were in Italy and we had a vehicle mounted jammer. You can imagine how big and bulky that thing was. One issue, we didn't have a vehicle, so here we are, the man-portable vehicle mounted jammer with a Honda generator to run it. And a conversion, because of course it was 24 volt, because it ran off a Humvee, and cans of gas. And we're humping through the field with that. So, JR, I'm sure you've seen some of that too. Like, why in the hell did you give us stuff that belongs on a truck? Well, because you're walking. And so we did through Italy.
Wow.
Nice
I actually was the idiot that joined the light infantry because I thought it meant I carried less. Joke was on
nice
me.
Try. No, it just means it just means they have a smaller footprint. You.
That was one of those ones where they lined us up because I was involuntarily reclassed right after I finished my first AIT, my MOS, and I got there and they lined us up. It's like, who wants to be light infantry and who wants to be heavy? And all the idiots that didn't know any better, we stepped forward and everyone laughed, but it was too late. So, yep.
You're done. Hey, thank you for volunteering. Oh my God. Yeah. Don't ever do that. Well, too late now, but now, yeah.
So, do you ever draw on people that you knew in the military? Of course, changing names to protect the guilty.
Yes, of course. And how can you not? We all write what we're experienced with. Some people it's experienced in video games on how people interact, and especially the worldwide the MMORPGs. Because you interact with teams and stuff like that. So you can bring those characterizations in to any kind of action sequences. Some people have no idea of what real combat is all about. And that comes out in their writing. And that's really, they need to take care and get somebody to check that. Because they don't understand what a final protective fire looks like. And how intense it could be. And I don't care who you are. You're not running through one. You simply wait until it's over and then you run. So the combat sequences, how people fight, how people run out of gas when they're fighting. Like you don't see a fist fight go on for 30 minutes. Have you ever been in a fist fight? Well, how about a minute? That's about all you got in you in a real fist fight, especially when you're trying to kill each other. So those kinds of things, they add the reality, characterizations, and some of the funny things people say. You put those in. quirks about folks, and it's all there. And the Marine Corps was such ripe fodder for books that I don't think I will ever run out of characters or funny stories to tell.
That's true. All right. So one of the many sci-fi subgenres you write in is Galactic Empire tales. So without naming any names, what's your biggest pet peeve in that category of books that you see other authors doing that you wish they'd fix?
What a pet peeve, and I'm not bagging on people, but when I see science fiction romance in those categories, it kind of bums me out.
Okay.
So you just don't feel like it fits into the Galactic Empire. Okay.
Now, Galactic Empire, here we've got a lawyer who goes from planet to planet to mete out justice. That's Galactic Empire for the Federation, which is a federation of planets. That is a Galactic Empire tale. Sleeping with an alien. I mean, that's I guess Star Trek. It worked for Kirk, but that's Kirk.
Over and over again.
Never met an alien he didn't want to sleep with. And that's I saw a meme online that said, "Why are Marines not going to be allowed in the Space Force?" Because every alien that we would come across, the Marines would figure out how to try to screw it. So you can't have that.
I saw that meme too.
It was more straightforward.
This is why we can't have nice things.
This is why you're standing on the planet Earth.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So switching to the positive side, what do you think are the best empires that you've seen other authors do?
The best empires. I really like what Mark E. Cooper did with the Merciari Wars. He did some great work there in his galaxy. Other galactic empires, David Weber and the Honor Harrington, the Harrington verse. Those are is another one that expanded, and I think he went a little bit off the rails with word counts and keeping that story clean. I mean, I really liked the first about 6. I was okay with the next 2, and then it kind of fell off. So maybe there is a limit to how much you can talk about with Galactic Empire. So. Just how it is. So you find what you like,
okay.
and you exploit that. And I don't, with the Bad Company and with Judge, Jury, and Executioner, I don't want to go beyond that point where I'm just jamming words to get words, even though the fans are calling for, hey, we need a new story. I want to write a story that is a good story and will always be a good story, whether it's the 10th book in the series or whether it's the 2nd book in the series.
Excellent. Now, you also write some genetic engineering tales. So, without naming any names, what do you see other authors doing that maybe isn't working so well?
On that, I don't really have an answer to that question. Sometimes people use genetic engineering to make superheroes. It's okay. Superhero is a great category, and I think Michael Anderle has done very well with his Bethany Ann character because she was genetically engineered and becomes a superhero. Even though it's alien, a little bit of horror, some comedy, Galactic Empire, all of those different categories come into play. So the genetic engineering, it's okay. It's a category that just says somebody's been modified. So it's more of a wide open category, and it's nice. I mean, I'm able to do well in that category. Judge, Jury, and Executioner hit number 1 in the genetic engineering category for a couple days. So
nice.
A.G. Riddle, he does the genetic engineering. He owns that category whenever he comes out with a new book.
So just real quick, the Bethany Ann character, what series is she in? And I'll link to that so if they're curious.
The Kurtherian Gambit.
So the main series?
Yes. Yeah. 21 books with a follow-on series. 1 book is already out.
Okay.
Nice. So who do you think does the best genetic engineering? Of course, besides yourself.
I think A.G. Riddle, his Atlantis gene, is an outstanding series.
Right on.
Okay. He actually spoke at one of the indie author days that Chris Kennedy put on with the local library here.
Oh, cool.
Given all kinds of writing advice to, and then talking about sort of like what we're doing, sci-fi writ large. So,
okay.
He's a friendly guy. All right, that is in the show notes, people. So if you're curious, we'll link to all of that. So of all the subgenres that you write in, which one do you have the most fun doing?
Space opera. I love the characters, character development, and character interaction. How do they work together in times of stress, times of combat, whatever it might be?
Okay. I do enjoy me some space opera. So, all right. So enough about your books now, Craig. Shameless plugging is over. So what are you reading currently in the science fiction genre?
What am I I write so much, and with the co-authors, I'm reading their books, the books that they're writing. So recreational reading, I haven't done a whole lot. However, Andre Norton had a book show up on BookBub for 99 cents, and Robert Heinlein did as well. So I picked up both of those, and I've been casually reading those whenever I have a few minutes.
So you return to the classics.
I like old school, man. Heinlein. One of the most humbling things is the comparison of the readers of me to Andre Norton. I mean, she was an incredible author, told a lot of great stories, and people saying, "Hey, you write like Norton." So very humbling, and I appreciate that, and I can only strive to live up to that.
Okay. So
nice.
So the last part of the interview that we ask everyone is we like to remember the science that makes up science fiction. So are there any new scientific breakthroughs you're following or excited by?
Well, I liked that ion drive, and it's now it's wishy-washy. It's like, hey, it works. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Come on, people. So the ion drive, where they can bounce ions off one side and have they don't have reverse thrust, so they don't have to shoot it out the back to go forward. That was the premise behind the ion drive. So I've been watching that, and I actually used it in my Cygnus space opera, and then it turns out that, oh, hey, it might not actually work. So bastards.
The EM drive was like that too. We based one of the series we're writing together on it, and then we're like, well, maybe the scientific paper was wrong. Like, oh,
yeah, yep.
Or they figure it out in the future.
Yeah, right.
Our primitive scientists today. They just need a little more time.
And one thing I did is I'm not a big fan of inertial dampeners. I know it works in Star Trek. It just you need it for that way that series works. But in my Cygnus space opera, I designed the whole ship around. We don't have inertial dampeners, so they all have to get in their seats for acceleration. They accelerate very slowly but incrementally, and then they slow down the same way. And so, I mean, I use that, but I don't. So it takes 2 weeks to get from here to there, even though they're accelerating and they're decelerating. Because, hey, I don't think you can do away with inertia. I hope someday we can figure that out, but right now I don't see it.
Cool. All right. What about you, Chris? Is there anything you're following and excited by?
Yeah, I found an article on MSN.com. It says, smart prosthetic ankle can adapt to uneven ground. So basically, this recent advancement in artificial limbs helps us to realize the dream of Luke Skywalker with his artificial hand in The Empire Strikes Back. It's supposed to be a serious medical advancement in technology. I do see one major problem with it, though. Two. First problem, until we have a really good brain to technology interface, something like a wet wire, I just imagine someone walking down the street with one of these 5-10 years in the future, it having a very slight malfunction and the person being pitched out in the street and run over by a car.
That would be bad.
It's just waiting for a lawsuit. I mean, there are artificial limbs right now where you see people running marathons with them. You see people hiking mountains, climbing rocks, doing all this cool stuff. I don't think a joint that it's going to do any kind of self-adjustment. I don't think we're ready for that yet. So yeah, that was the two problems. I think we're missing the human to machine interface. And
oh, come on, man!
I think it's just right for a lawsuit.
You see how it works for self-driving cars,
right? Completely flawless. Oops, except for that one time, and that other time,
and that time after that. Yeah,
they'll get it right eventually.
When they drove into the cop car, and
who'd you ticket?
yeah.
What about you, JR?
So this is the name of the article. It says, no, China's Tiangong 2 space lab probably isn't going to fall to Earth. They had to throw that disclaimer in the title. That wasn't me this time. So China's second space lab dived unexpectedly towards Earth this month, just 2 months after its predecessor crashed uncontrolled into our Earth's atmosphere. However, according to the article, space.com, where I found it, they didn't think it will crash into the atmosphere, probably, maybe-ish, I love that scientific certainty. So the uncrewed Tiangong 2 vehicle, and I hope I pronounced that right, descended about 59 miles or 95 kilometers 2 weeks ago, then popped back up to its previous 242-mile high, 390 kilometers. According to Jonathan McDowell, an astronomer at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. So basically, we're not relying on the Chinese state media to tell us about this. This is actually us spying on them. I mean, observing. The initial dip prompted some speculation that was preparing to deorbit the platform, but the boost back up suggests something else is going on. McDowell, the scientist, suspects this is evidence that they are testing maneuvers and basically practicing so they can learn from their previous mistakes. If you're interested in finding out more, the article goes into a lot more depth. So the good news, according to the author, is the scientist they interviewed, is a sort of a bonus. The drop and rise move will also burn up a lot of fuel. So if they ever do unexplainably re-enter the atmosphere, at least the explosion will be a little smaller. So as usual with all of these space news, you should check it out yourself. Because when it comes to tech, I am basically like 3 breaths away from being a knuckle dragger. So trust but verify, as they say.
Can verify that one.
So moving on, Craig, as we bring this to this crazy interview to a close, how can listeners find you?
CraigMartelle.com, CraigMartelle.com, or any of the books I talked about. Dark Landing is an easy one word. You search that, you'll find me, you'll find Scott Moon, you'll find some other great folks that I've been honored to write with.
So all of that will be in the show notes. So just scroll down when you listen to this podcast on whatever hosting platform you are on, and you should see that. But what about us, Chris? Where can they find us?
Our website is www.sfshenanigans.com. Our Twitter handle is @SFS, that's Sierra Foxtrot Sierra _show. Our email is podcast@sfshenanigans.com. And our Facebook group is facebook.com/groups/sfshenanigans.
Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Chris Winder, I'm J.R. Handley, and this was the Sci-Fi Shenanigans Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of space and all things that go boom.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that archived episode that was in the digital memory hole that we found. We thought you'd enjoy it. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber and Doc Cisca, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the archive for the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back at our regular scheduled time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom.